Oh, Tom, I can't hear you.
That's gone well. It was all going smoothly until that moment. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to November's ID update. As you can tell, we are having a phenomenally good afternoon in terms of tech here. It's been hilarious in the run-up to pressing the go live button. 10 minutes ago, everything was fine, and in the last 10 minutes, everything wasn't fine anymore. But we are here, we are live, people are actually turning up, so this is wonderful stuff. Thank you for joining us live. Please do get involved in the chat. I realised I forgot to say this last time, but we would love to hear your takes on anything we're discussing today. And of course, if you've got questions that you would rather that we focus on, put them in there, then we can ignore you till the end and try and rush out some answers in the last 15 minutes. As always, with me is the co-host of the ID Update, Heidi. Heidi, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm here. How are you?
I feel like that is like the officially acceptable answer for 2025, isn't it? Like, I am here, that's just going to have to be enough for you, let's move on.
Here we are. Here we are on a Friday, Tom.
Absolutely. Well, where else would you want to be on a Friday than on a live stream talking about the state of the L&D industry? I mean...
Exactly.
The particularly sad thing is that those who know me will know that is not a joke. This is the pinnacle of my week right here. Fantastic.
Same.
Well, again, let us know in the chat if this is the pinnacle of your week, then we can all commiserate together. But no, yeah, do get involved. It's always a better show when you let us know what you think. We've got Lauren, the learning pirate, with us. Thank you for joining us. So, without further ado, let's dive into. I guess straight into probably the bigger topic.
Let's do it.
The state of the industry. And to be clear, I use the word state as not as in, oh, it's a right state, but in the kind of, how are we doing? Because it would be easy to say everything's on fire, help, run away. But I think there is some interesting stuff in there, right? So let's maybe focus on some of the interesting stuff as well as the negatives. So where would you like to start, Heidi?
Let's start with like the recent news updates. Who's acquired who's been funded, what's going on? Absolutely.
So, we recently, and I didn't see this one coming, but Elucidat. Like Elucidat was always one of my favourite tools, but I very rarely got to use it because it was really freaking expensive. So it was usually held by very big organisations, blah blah. So they were that, to me, that one came out of the blue. I gotta be honest. I thought authoring tools have changed hands a few times, but they aren't usually the big buy. The platforms tend to be
Yeah.
the big sort of purchases that people make. And I can get why, it's a much higher level of annual recurring revenue. It's much more difficult to move platform than it is authoring tool, so your customers tend to stay for longer, it's more stable, etc., etc., etc. But clearly Elucidat having something that made it very, very attractive from an acquisition perspective.
Which is great.
Absolutely. We know some of the people there, so on a personal level, great work. Well done.
Right.
I've shared my views on, like, I don't think acquisitions are good for the industry in the long term. I don't think consolidation of power and all that kind of thing is ever good for an industry. The closer we move to a monopoly, the worse everything gets. We see that in literally everything else. We're already seeing it in the world of AI, where there are just, look at all these phenomenal, cool new AI companies, and now they're all disappearing as big companies swallow them up. Gee, who saw that coming? It kills innovation, broadly speaking. But I also get that from a be realistic, why do people start companies? To make money. If someone turned around and said, hey, Tom, we'd like to buy Evolve off you for insert X many millions of pounds tomorrow, I'm not going to say I wouldn't be tempted. Don't panic, team. We're good. No one's making us that offer. But, I'm not going to sit here and pretend, well, I would never sell a company to, it's like, if enough zeros get put in front of most people, they're going to say yes. So that's fair enough.
Business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, on a personal level, great news for the team involved. They clearly created a really valuable product. And then was it MindClick?
Mindsmith,
that's the one. There are, just before we dive into that conversation.
Okay. I know there's so many tools that begin with mind.
Product naming, right? And I blame Apple for this with their bullshit. It's the iPhone. No. Give it a name. They then put numbers. Oh, they're just AirPods. Fucking AirPods. Give them numbers. Give me numbers. Oh, it's the 2024 iPad. No, what's the fucking version number? Enough with this bullshit of not clearly naming products or having names that are very close to someone else's product. Like, everyone used to be scared
made
of
up
that.
Names.
Oh, yeah. Just name your product something sensible.
Made up names that no one is sure how to pronounce because the vowels don't make any phonetic sense. Yes. As a former English professor, this pains me greatly. Yes.
This is it. Anyway, yes, Mindsmith. Do you want to talk to us about Mindsmith and some of the numbers there?
Yeah. Mindsmith just received 4.1 million in funding, which is great for them. I know a couple of the guys over there, and they're wonderful people. They've got an AI first authoring tool though, so it's based on inserting prompts and resources and uploading materials, and then it creates content using AI based on what you enter.
And I'd like to get your steer on this. So that kind of AI authoring tool has gone from very new to absurdly common. I would say, not in a kind of negative way, but in a kind of maybe a year ago, people going, wow, I've never seen this before. Like, a year and a half ago, when I was working in product, we were looking at the possibilities of how could we get that to work and how do you put guardrails in place, blah, blah. And now it seems like almost everyone has some tool. Some of them are better than others, without a shadow of a doubt. Some are awful, some are actually quite impressive. Many are in the middle. Do you think that they are? Do you think that's the way authoring tools are moving generally? Because I see it in a lot of the newer, smaller, more agile players, but I've yet to really see any movement from the established names towards that kind of approach.
Yeah. What I would like to see, I guess that's different than what I am seeing, but what I would like to see is this world where the authoring tool isn't everyone in the industry uses the same thing, but rather people and individual teams and individual organizations choose the tool that is best for them. Much like we do in, oh God, I don't know, every other frickin' department in our entire organization. Everyone has multiple options for tools for people to use, but somehow we have let one monolithic tool guide our entire industry for like 50, no, it's not, I'm exaggerating. It has not been 50 years, but it feels like it. It feels like it. And I think I'm hoping that these tools can really carve out their unique niche, these cloud-based tools, because I think there is really good opportunity for them. And I think the message though is very clear, is that what I'm hearing from employees, what I'm hearing from L&D, what I'm hearing from leadership and executives is that this like clickable slide-based PowerPoint course is not what anybody wants anymore. And I think we're going to see a massive shift away from that in the next few years as L&D starts to tighten.
And I think that's quite interesting. It kind of touches on one of the other things we're going to discuss, right? Which is this research from ID Atlas, which you shared with me today. And actually, I'd been reading about it. A couple of people have mentioned it to me recently. If anyone reads the Dirty World magazine, the e-learning magazine, really fantastic stuff. I want to make sure we share links to this in the chat. Let me grab one now. You initially sent it to me, so do you want to share your initial thoughts about it? Talk us through what it is.
Sure.
And go from there.
Yeah. So I posted a shortened version of the link. I'll wait for you, Tom. But yeah, so Mike Stein, who's a friend of mine in the L&D world, we're proud to have him as a member of our useful L&D community, where he's done some of his research there as well. But he did a recent case study testing the development time of Storyline compared to a lot of other cloud-based authoring tools, right? And had the criteria and had the same lesson that was created with the same level of interaction, with the same, and did kind of a very clinical side-by-side comparison of how long does it take to create all of these things. And what he found was that using Articulate Storyline took 6 times as long as the average time it took the rest of the authoring tools. So all of the rest of the authoring tools were about an hour to develop the same thing that it took Storyline 6 hours to complete. There was no special or different mechanisms that had to be used in Storyline that weren't used in these authoring tools. It was just, control conditions. So, the question then becomes, is the output 6 times better than what these cloud-based authoring tools make? Because if not, it is now a risk to continue all of your e-learning development using that tool that takes that long, right? That's kind of the implication of this study to me. The other thing is we are seeing L&D as an industry shrinking. I've talked about how I'm looking for jobs outside of L&D. I've met a number of people since I had that conversation who are also doing the same thing. There's some numbers out of the Fosway group this week that showed decreasing headcount, a decrease in approved headcount or additional headcount, but also a decrease in current headcount. They said there's a problem with the link that you sent, Tom, just FYI, in the chat. But, we know that the headcount is shrinking, but we also know that these ed tech companies that are AI focused are still getting funded as if there's no problem with the industry, right? So that tells me that the push to be faster, more efficient, do more with less, the call is even greater than it was before. And if we don't listen to it, if we don't heed it, if we don't start looking at what are ways that we can become more efficient, then we're going to be at risk. And I think that this is some really important data to help us understand, because I get why people continue to use the same tool. They have these libraries, they build up this, repository of courses, and that becomes very daunting to try and then fix or change or do something new. But when you look at the cost benefit analysis, which is what teams should be doing, it should be pretty clear that something has to change, whether it's that, whether it's something else, something has to change.
And this is, I think, quite an interesting one because, like, first of all, like, this is exactly the kind of, thorough research that I really love to see. One thing I particularly liked is they don't try and make any sweeping statements based on this research. It is kind of done and put out there for us to look at and think, how does this apply? How can I utilize this? It's research that provides data off the back of which we can ask better questions of ourselves and of our practice, not that says, therefore you should buy the following thing. Which is almost always where this stuff ends up with in our industry, because it gets put in a white paper and it goes, therefore you should buy this tool because this is the best authoring tool. All this kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
Usually written by, guess what, the people selling that tool.
Yeah, and to that point, also, they do list out like who scored the highest on, and they gave all their criteria, what they scored it on, and then who scored the highest. And then they even, Mike even says, but that's not even the tool that we ended up using for ourselves. Here are the tools that here are the tools that we actually use based on our particular needs. And that goes back again to that. What is your team's need? What is your organization's need? Just like there's an LMS for everyone, my God, there should be an authoring tool for everyone.
This is it, and it touches on something that we used to talk about quite a lot actually when I first did the ID update with Joey. We used to talk about it a little bit, and now I guess I feel like it's still relevant in that we tend to say that we need an authoring tool for the business. We need one tool and it needs to cover absolutely everything that the entire organisation does. Other departments don't really do that. You have a toolbox, you have a toolkit. You don't have one thing. And it is surprising to me that we still do this, that we still really just hammer this idea of one tool, it solves all your problems. If you get the right one, you'll never need another tool. When in fact we know that you're going to need more than one authoring tool. Realistically, you are going to need some form of you're going to need some form of, what's the right word really? Some form of internal variety. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Internal variety.
Yeah.
And it kind of touches on this, but it also kind of acknowledges how difficult that is. It's very easy as an external partner to be like, oh yeah, just buy all the authoring tools. Just buy them all. But from an organizational perspective, where it's like, IT departments are like, we want one word processor, and it's going to be Microsoft Word or it's going to be Google Sheets. We don't want both. We're going to have one printer manufacturer, for God's sake, and it's going to be Lumix. They're not good printers, but they're easy to buy replacement parts for, whatever it might be. And then when you go, so why is everyone still using Storyline? It's like, because they've got like a decade's worth of content built in Storyline, and the idea of going, don't worry, just buy some more authoring tools. It is difficult to do the right thing in this scenario. It's one of those times where I feel a little bit like, yes, we can say, we've got to change and we've got to do better and blah, blah, blah. But we've also got to have that sense of like, but actually the logistics of this change are complicated. Which is, it's not a justification for not doing anything, but I think is there an audio problem for me?
Your audio is not a problem for me, which is interesting. But yeah, Linnea says that it's cutting in and out for the end listeners.
Okay, I'm going to say I don't know what that's causing that, but I will try and find out. I've kind of made my point though, which was
now you've gone completely. Okay.
Am I here now?
Yes, you are.
Cool. I've made my point, which was yes, the idea of the toolkit is the optimum, but from a business perspective, that's kind of a nightmarish proposition. We're just going to have this whole range of tools that we can pick and choose from as we go. It makes perfect sense to us, but anyone managing an internal IT department will have a small fit when you tell. They all kind of do the same thing, but slightly differently. It's like, I'm sorry, you what?
Right. Right. Well, and when I was working in customer education, we had a tool stack. And when you have a tool kit like that, it becomes very easy then to share it, right? Because we borrowed Wistia and Adobe Creative Cloud, and I think, oh no, we shared our Camtasia and Snagit licenses with marketing, but we started sharing all of these subscriptions with marketing. They gave us Wistia and InDesign, and then we gave them Camtasia and Snagit. And so now to IT, it doesn't look like just one department taking up, put the LMS plus all your fixed monthly expenses. You're looking at tens of thousands of dollars in software budget that's only used by this one department. That's risk. And that's risk we cannot afford with the way things are shifting, right? Because, somebody can be coming in from, some AI company to, let's say somebody from one of these AI companies who are now getting funded, who are getting sales executives, goes to your leader, your CEO of your company, and says, I see that you guys have all these old courses in this big LMS and you're paying all, how much is your budget for L&D? Well, I can slash that to a third of the cost, and you can even get rid of some of your headcount, and I can give you comparable output. Because that's really, everyone keeps saying this, Tom. Everyone keeps saying, well, but AI, what it outputs isn't good. But neither is what we have been doing. Are you kidding me? And if it's between paying somebody $50,000 for a PowerPoint, which I saw happen this year, they paid $50,000 to a contractor for an unfinished PowerPoint. And this was a company that reports up to one of the big companies, one of the big ones that you would know globally, wasted $50,000 on a PowerPoint. And it's so hard for me to watch and to say, why wouldn't I spend $20 to have AI spit out a crappy PowerPoint instead of paying somebody $50,000 to do the same thing? It makes it very hard for the business case.
And I think in a strange way, this is like my one optimistic thought about what this is going to do is that it must and this is a long-term glimmer of hope, is it will drive professional standards up. It has to. Because
I agree.
And it will do so brutally, as we have seen in other industries before. We saw this in marketing in their shift to being growth focused rather than being, just being the kind of loud hailer for the business. They had to completely reskill, and they had to set a much higher minimum bar because so much of the work that they had done, like SEO and finding potential markets, became automated with tools like SEMrush and all that kind of stuff. And so this is kind of like our moment for that. We saw this with car manufacturing. It was no longer enough to be a really reliable assembly agent. You had to learn how to work with robots. And it doesn't stop. And I think for too long, our skill set did sit still. We basically said, what was good at the end of World War II has remained good, and we'll just carry on. And we went, now we can do e-learning. What, should we learn how to do that? Well, no, we'll just apply all the same thinking from the end of World War II to a new format, because that's sound. And some of it is, but the problem is that we never even adapted it. We just slapped it into the digital world.
And
this
then we
is
said,
yeah.
oh, we'll gamify it. Oh, we'll chop it into smaller bits. Oh, we'll just take the same thing that we've always done. And oh no, a pandemic's here. We'll just put it online.
Yeah, don't worry, just
It's
do it on a
like,
Teams call, it'll be fine. Yeah, and this is why, like, I do sometimes I feel like I have to offer the caveat. I genuinely love what we do. Like, hopefully that comes through. Like, we do a lot of events. I love doing events. We were at Connect last week. Like, running Connect for the last 3 years has
I'm
been
so
like
sad.
the highlight of my career. I've loved doing it
Such
every single
FOMO.
year. I know, right? It's good. It was just fantastic. It was like, it was really fantastic. But yeah, anyway, doing all that sort of stuff, it's kind of like all the best bits, but that doesn't save it from that sense of just like, we cannot be surprised that we are catching it now. Like, for so long, we just ploughed ahead. We just carried on the way we've always worked, thinking somehow things would keep going. And this is finally that time. And to be clear, like, I think this is AI, but I think it's AI plus economics plus social changes. There are so many things
Yes.
changing at once that, it was really interesting. If anyone's read sort of Julian Stodd's stuff, and if you're at Connect, you'll have heard him speak. He spoke about this idea of how, unlike in the past where one big thing has changed, we as people have actually been completely blown apart from one another. Society, the economy, the technical world, the working world have all come apart all at the same time. And that's never really happened before. It's usually been one or two of them at any given time. But what that means is that we may never come back together quite how it was before. And maybe we have to start thinking about what are the benefits of that, and what are the new, what he says, like the rocks we cling onto, like truth and
Yeah.
trust and community. What do they now look like in this world? Because they're going to look very different. They may have been broken
Right.
apart. True may no longer exist. It may have to be true enough for today. Trust may not be what it looked like before. How do we develop trust? What is trust?
Yeah.
It's a really interesting way of looking at, especially our industry, I think, right now. But you could look at the whole of the world in that space. But I do
Sure.
think, the idea that we were somehow not going to get this happen to us was insane. It had to come to us eventually. We've seen it hit every other industry. And for some reason, then we were surprised when it knocked on the L&D door. It was quite a bizarre feeling. And I say this as I never thought it was going to get this bad. Like, I'm on record going, by the end of the year, things will have stabilised
Yes.
and blah, blah, blah. It's just that sense of blind optimism. That, don't worry,
Right.
we've always
Right.
been okay,
Yeah.
we'll always be okay. And actually, maybe we're not, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this is that big challenge that says, it's not good enough, up your game or get out of the way. Because someone else will. Which is really like a harsh way of looking at it, but I do think there's a need for us as an industry to look at this and say, it's not good enough to say, don't worry, it will get better soon. It is an opportunity to say, we have to get better to outgrow this. Sorry,
And people like you and me and Kara and Tim and have been saying this for a little while, that we need to do better, guys. We need to get elevated. We need to change the focus. We need to focus on what's important. We need to, we've been saying, some of the early adopters, I guess, if you will, have been saying this for some time, but we're really now in a critical point where, yes, unfortunately, your ultimatums, Tom, are the truth. I'm watching entire L&D teams getting eliminated. I'm watching people who have offered to help me in my job search come back and say, actually, I can't help you because I'm losing my job too now. And I'm now in the same position as you. And there's a lot of people who are, there's a lot of people who are just disengaged, right? They're unhappy with the things that we're talking about, this old tech that we're being almost forced to keep using, even though we know it's wrong. How many people I talk to in a week who are doing bad L&D, just bad, like bad, and they know it, but they feel trapped, and they feel like, especially right now with the economy, there's nowhere they can go. There's no pushback that they can do. There's no influence that they can wield. There's no trust that they can build. And for me, I keep saying, like, because it's too late. We had our opportunity to show people this. And from my historical perspective, I look at COVID, which was like this really amazing opportunity for L&D to step up and do some incredible things. But because we were under like time pressure, we kind of like, had to do the best that we could. But what it did was it brought in like a ton of educators into our field, which should have been a grand slam. That should have been the enlightenment period of our industry. But instead, something terrible happened. And many of those educators came into our industry through high-priced, low-quality boot camps that made them underskilled and unprepared for the actual work that they were supposed to be doing. Meanwhile, the L&D leaders didn't really know that this was a problem and hired all these people because they went, oh, wow, great, cheap labor during a pandemic, right? Because these educators were in a position where they would do anything to get out of the classroom, including taking salaries that are below our normal industry range, right? So they created this very low band of unskilled, underpaid labor that then the L&D leaders were scrambling to cover up rather than admitting that it was a problem. And I remember people like me and Kara and Tim were called wild for calling out these boot camps back then. We were considered, like, I got some people who wouldn't work with me, who wouldn't collaborate with me because they said I was too controversial. But now we're seeing how negatively our field has been impacted by these bad boot camps. And people are like, wow, these boot camps are terrible. And we're like, yeah, we've been telling you that for years, right? Yeah. And as the L&D leaders shuffled to cover this problem up, when it was time to replace them, businesses replaced them with anyone but L&D people because they had lost that faith and trust that these people knew how to hire, that they knew how to run their department, that they knew how to run their team. And they hired people from product and marketing who don't care about learning, who don't know about learning, and who didn't have the time to level up or upskill or learn about what it is that we do. So now you have the lost leading the lost leading the lost. And then you have on top of it, the people on YouTube who are supposed to be the leaders in this industry, who many of them on YouTube don't even have experience in our industry as practitioners. You've got the organizations who've made it very clear that they don't give a shit about the learning science or the research or the data or the theory, and have rejected my dissertation research from every single one of the major conferences. And then you've got on top of it, these products that we're forced to use that don't update their features based on our feedback, that don't care that we can't afford their subscriptions because they're about profits. We've had enough. And the people who are really good in this industry are either going to leave or they're going to fight. That's where we're at.
And I think this is kind of the challenge, right? Is that, and I'd be interested to hear what everyone in the audience is thinking about this sort of thing at the minute, because we end up in a space where you have the vendor space, of which, to be very clear, I am a part of. Like my company
yes.
is a vendor. We go into organizations. Yes, we train, we deliver training, and we support L&D functions in developing their practice, but we're still a vendor. We exist on that side of the fence. When we go in, we are seeing this weird combination, and this maybe leads us into one of the other topics as well. This weird combination and this big gap in the workplace of very seasoned senior L&D professionals who are very passionate but are resistant to all forms of change, possibly because they have seen a lot of negative change but
Yeah.
therefore are kind of so ready to be combative that they actually become an impediment to improving practice.
Yeah.
Then we
Yes.
see a group of not necessarily young but less experienced L&D practitioners. Some are educators, some are just only a couple of years into it, who are very open to change but lack a foundation on which to decide what change is good, what change is bad. And so they
Yes. Oh,
either embrace everything that comes their way, or they look to those very resistant senior practitioners and take their steer, so they infect everyone. And this is actually where my biggest concern lies. We have it's not a talent gap, it's a talent gulf. I cannot right now tell you where the next generation of L&D practitioners is going to come from, because everyone that I speak to is like, either they don't know it exists, or they look at the current situation and go, why the hell would I want to go and work there? And that is
yeah.
concerning, because I can see it in the younger end of Gen Z employees that are just entering work now, and I can already see in conversations in the next group of people joining the workplace that there is this. And to be clear, this is not a there's something wrong with them. This is a we have really fucked up here. There is just, again, either an absolute lack of awareness that this career path exists, or when they do become aware of it, they do not want to work in that space. And that should really tell us a lot, especially given how much we talk about employee engagement and well-being and how wonderful the world of work needs to be and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but not just for those that have already been here 10 years,
Ooh.
which does seem to be our general approach to our industry. And this goes, and this is the bit that stretches into my side of the world, into the vendor space. The vendor space has a real problem of who do we cater for? Because I can tell you now
Yes.
that there is no profit to be made in worrying about tomorrow's employees. The vendor space will always cater to the senior, stuck in the mud L&D professional group, because it's most of the industry and they're the ones who get to buy shit. So you can't look to the vendor space to solve this problem. This problem has to be solved in the practitioner space, where making money off it short term isn't the priority. And that's kind of where I get really concerned right now, is that where do we
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
ourselves in a few years' time?
I've heard, I forget who said it to me, but it was somebody who is like one of us, in terms of like shares our same ideas. But they said, I look at the people I'm supposed to look up to and I'm no longer impressed. And then I look at the people coming in behind and I don't see myself in them anymore. And I think that kind of echoes your point here, right? Is, there are definitely people who are senior in this industry to revere and respect, and to their work is still valid. Their work is still good. Clark Quinn, people that aren't even like Cammie Bean, right? Bob Mosher. Like, there are people that have such good insight. Guy Wallace, who, doesn't try. Guy Wallace, what I like about him is that he doesn't try to be the now. He very much says, this is what I did back in my day, and I think that this is still valuable now.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to sell the same book from 30 years ago today and use the same gamification like theories and practices from 50 years ago, when we all have consoles in our homes. Like, you're not fooling anybody. And my challenge to the older, more senior L&D people is, if you are within 5 years of retirement, I want you to really think about how you're going to hand things off to the next generation, because I don't think enough people are thinking about that. And we are like, I'm not young, Tom. I'm not young. Like, uh, I shouldn't say this on YouTube, but I'm pretty sure I've started perimenopause and I still am not considered a senior person in the industry, right? And I am middle aged. I want to be one of the leaders in this space. I want to be guiding this space. I want to be one of the people that people look to. And, you know, these lists on social media that say, oh, the 25 L&D people that you've got to follow. That's not what I'm talking about. Like, I want to have a meaningful impact. And I can't because there's too much noise. And I can't because there's too many people that should have stepped down years ago to allow us heard and to have our unique experiences and ideas. I mean, the people who are listening in, I know who are watching our cast right now. You, the Apple Internet, we have unique experiences that we have for people, but are constantly being highlighted.
Yeah, and I think there's a challenge there for us, I think, as well, to say in the past things have been very, and actually this links up really nicely with something else I want to talk about. So I'm going to pivot us slightly, but also move us forward, and that is, historically there has been this model of you enter the workplace, you do all right, you become some kind of in the middle-y type person, you progress, you become senior, you become maybe C-suite or whatever it might be in your business, whatever. And I think that doesn't work anymore. And one of the topics that came up actually I sat on a panel last week about the skills that learning leaders need moving into 2026. We had a lovely conversation and back and forth, all very different ideas, which was great. People disagreed with me, which made me really happy. Really like good conversation. Yay! Rather than everyone just smiling and nodding and pretending we're all aligned, which is fantastic. And then there was a question about Gen Z not wanting or appearing to not want to or be hesitant to pursuing leadership positions. And I found this fascinating. First of all, I think it's really important to acknowledge the difference between not appearing to and not wanting. I think there's a big difference.
Ooh.
I know plenty of people in that age group who want leadership positions, but like hell are they getting them in the way that we had to go after them and that the generation before us went after them.
Correct.
And I will clarify, like, I am not of this generation, but I did make the point in the room that I am of a generation that was, before we even hit the workplace, we were branded as lazy and entitled. So on my first day of work, I was entering the world of work with the knowledge that everyone felt that me and my entire generation were lazy and entitled. What a wonderful environment to walk into. So I think there is a danger that whenever we talk about kind of the generations of this, that, and leadership positions, blah, 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 let's be so careful about the language that we use, because it's not just that's non-ideal, you shouldn't generalize, blah blah blah. It's like it actually does quite significant harm. So I think that's something needs to be aware of. But the thing that sort of was very evident in the room was this idea that it's not maybe that they don't want leadership positions. Because if we look at the leaders that we have today and have had for the last 50 years, do we think they've been doing a really great job? Are we so, over the moon happy with leadership as it exists today in the working world that we don't think a fundamentally different model is required? And maybe that means that they just aren't going to pursue leadership roles that require them to conform to the same bullshit that leaders have done previously. You know, as a generation who and this is an oversimplification, but they broadly don't seem to put the same value on being stressed. And that sounds ridiculous, but actually,
I think you're right.
How many of us have been in an environment where we are made to feel good or congratulated because of how much pressure we put ourselves under? I've worked an extra 20 hours this week. Oh, it's great to see your commitment to the team and da 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 da. That is even, like, you know, like you say, I'm not sat here at the age of 65 reminiscing on a distant past. You know, I'm reminiscing about freaking 10 years ago when literally it's like, how do you get ahead? You work your arse off. You get ahead by being the first in and the last out, and then you take your laptop home and you work at night and you come in the next day having done more than anyone else. That's how you make a name for yourself. That's how you get ahead. And actually, that is still pretty commonplace across the workplace, that person is held up as, yes, they're the ones on the fast track or the whatever. And that, it's difficult, right? Because I don't think the people doing that are doing anything wrong. They are doing what the system demands of them. Maybe the question is, are we enabling that? Are we holding that system to be true when perhaps it isn't inherently true? Are we saying to people that if you want to move up, if you want to be in leadership positions, that's what you got to do? And if we are, maybe we're the problem. Maybe our leaders are the problem and not a new generation of people who, let's face it, have arrived to, like, millennials join the workplace with, oh, you know, you're lazy, you're entitled. Gen Z joined the workplace seemingly with everyone hating them, having never met them. It was insane.
Yes. Well, and continuing to call them millennials.
Well, yeah, and that. Yeah. That I begrudge
and
more
continuing to call all young people millennials still. And I'm like, the oldest millennials are like, what, mid-40s now?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I think, I think you're right. I think you're spot on. I think it kind of is like that same sentiment that we always hear in the greater workplace of, well, nobody wants to work, right? And then, then you see the posts where it shows throughout history, people saying nobody wants to work, right? And then they show a newspaper ad from the 1930s where somebody's complaining that nobody wants to work. I can't find enough people to run my mill because nobody wants to work, right? And it aside from the fact that the point is, gosh, nobody should want to work. My dream, if I'm Miss America up on the stage before solving world hunger, before world peace, I would be like, I want nobody to want to work. That would be my dream, is that nobody wants to work. Right. But I think that you're right. They just don't want to work in the way that we've been told that we have to, because the longer that I'm alive, I realize that there have been a lot of times in life where I've been given an ultimatum, quote unquote, of two choices when there were many other choices that could be made. And it feels like right now in our industry, we're kind of being boxed into that same ultimatum where it's like, we have two choices. We can keep using all these old tools and SCORM and keep operating like order takers and keep making these course libraries and do all this stuff like the old way. Or we can AI all over everything and go full speed ahead and replace everybody on the team with AI. And I'm going, there are so many other choices in between these things that we can do. We don't have to go full speed ahead. We don't have to throw everything away. I'm not saying everybody needs to retire and we need to throw out all these old tools. No. I'm saying, can we approach this with some pragmatism, please? Can we approach this by learning a little bit more about the theory? There's been this anti-academic rhetoric lately, and this typically happens when that's happening in other areas globally, right? And that's happening. So it's kind of trickling down now to our industry. And there's a really anti-academic rhetoric about, I saw someone post, the last thing we need is more data and research and theories. And I'm like, what? And they say, oh, well, people spend too much time on the theories. They spend too much time on the models and the frameworks, and they get caught up on them and they don't know how to actually do the job. That's a fair point. But that doesn't mean that we need less theory and less research and less frameworks. It means we need to learn how to better apply them and understand them, and that we're missing the fundamental skills to interpret them and to think about them critically and to apply them in different contexts and use our problem solving skills. We're missing these very fundamental critical skills. And the theory is what allows us to be innovative, because it tells us what has already been tried before and did or didn't work, which allows us to move forward with speed and intention, not the other way around.
Sure, it's really funny. Like last week was the first time actually that I've presented and sort of shared the body of work that has formed around like this experiment-led design stuff that I've been working on for the last 18 months. Annoyingly, the books weren't delivered in time, and they were delivered while I was away, so they all got rained on, and so are ruined. But it means that it means technically my first book has already gone to reprint. No one read the first batch. The rain got them, but.
Oh my God, Tom, this is horrible.
So it's one of those you laugh or you cry moments. So we're gonna laugh and say the first edition, every copy of it is gone. It was amazing, huge success. Second edition,
Gosh, I would be tracking down the delivery person with a crowbar.
but it was exactly the same conversation, because this whole thing is like you can only experiment meaningfully, rapidly, moving from discovery experimentation into validation experimentation on top of a like strong foundational understanding of how we learn and how performance dynamics works, and understanding the working environment specific to your business and the wider workplace. Without all of that stuff, without all the theory, without all of that underpinning it, you can't do anything. And an individual's inability to synthesize complex ideas to their context is actually not the problem of the theorists or the researchers or the publishers of books or the printers of books that get never read by any human being. Whatever it might be, none of that comes from that place. That comes from us as an industry fundamentally ignoring the value of that critical thinking, researching, and self-educating that we must do. Like, we are both blessed and challenged with the lack of a meaningful sort of professional standardization. There is no such thing as a qualified instructional designer or head of L&D. Or there are qualifications you can do. Some people are very certificated or certified, but there is no one moment where someone can go, yes, you are now able to do this job. It's not like being a surgeon or a policeman or whatever it might be.
Or an accountant.
Where there's some kind of thing you're held accountable to. We have, basically, sure, I'll give it a go, boss. Let's see if I can train people. And if you don't get sacked, you're good. That's, for most people, that is what L&D looks like.
You're right.
And to be clear, I'm not actually a huge fan of the idea of, like, for instance, we all have to be degree educated. I couldn't make it through one.
Agreed.
So I'd be out of a job.
Agreed.
But should we have some kind of universally agreed upon professional standards? Ideal world, yes. Reality, it's never going to happen. It's too late. We've got too many organisations that would want to own that. In the UK, we've got the LPI, we've got CIPD, we've got probably some others that I don't care about. And then in the US, you've got the Learning Guild, you've got ATD. I'm sure you've got others.
That's about. Yeah, those are the two big ones.
Yeah, and then all over the world, you've got other groups. They would all be proposing basically the same set of skills, but with some other freaking branding behind it and with all different price tags attached to it. There will never, I don't think, be a cohesive enough body to get everyone on board.
Yeah.
But
no.
But with the lack of a unified professional standard, it has to be on us as individuals to set our professional standards, I would say, to say, do I actually know enough to do this job well? And if not, how do I turn that into a yes? And I just don't and this is a bit of a preaching to the choir moment, right? We're all here on a Friday, for me, evening, going, what do I want to spend my spare time on? I know, I'll go and listen to Tom and Heidi opine about the state of the L&D industry. We're probably in the group that says, I'll learn anything and everything I can because I'm interested. But the vast majority of our industry either doesn't think like that or doesn't have the luxury of the time to invest in themselves. Because to be fair, it's not always a I don't care. It is sometimes a genuine issue.
Yes. Well, and I think that there should be room for the people who literally just want to come into our industry and do their job and not be involved in any organization and not do any professional development and just do like a very solid career job. I think there's room for that. I think we need those people, but I think that they still need that foundational knowledge that our field is largely lacking these days. It's, like you said, it's not like we are so far behind. We have been so far behind, and we have a lot of catching up to do on just very basic skills. Like I know some of the creators of modern authoring tools are having trouble specifically with L&D. They're selling to sales enablement teams. They're selling to customer education teams, but they're having trouble with L&D because they can't use the same kind of tech. They're not as familiar with the tech. They have a much larger learning curve, and it's because they've been using outdated tools for so long. And it's like it's any angle that you look at our industry right now, like there are serious, deeply rooted problems that we need to be talking about if we want to survive the shrinking of the industry right now. That's the fact, right? And I don't say that to scare people. I say that because I have been part of 2 layoffs. I have had to call my team and tell them to their face that they're being laid off because, we weren't able to show that fast enough. We weren't able to prove that value fast enough because we had a revolving director position that saw 5 different people in it over a year and a half. Mm-hmm. We had no chance, and if somebody had been brought in who actually knew about learning, I know that I would still be working there today. And that's the tough part. It's tough to see my name on these lists of L&D people you should follow. And I cannot for the life of me find a role in this industry. There's a disparity there. There's a disparity between how much money these ed tech companies are getting and the practitioner salaries and realities of the job market. And it's scary to me. And I want people to start talking about it.
And on that note, we are 2 minutes till the end of our hour together this evening. So thank you for everyone who's been really active in the chat. You've raised some really interesting stuff. Hopefully the tech issues haven't been too disruptive. We do have a couple of things to plug as such. So first things first, IDTX is back in 2026. This is the set of free-to-attend virtual conferences, pay what you want ones. At this stage, tickets are available, but I'm also looking for speakers. So, if you would like to return, the details for entering a proposal are on the website. There are actually 3 events planned for next year, 2 virtual and 1 in person. Our in-person event, our in-person event is very on theme for what we've just talked about, the Evidence-Informed Practice Conference. So we're going to have a whole day of pulling together scientists, researchers and whatnot to come and talk to us about their clever stuff so that we can try and synthesize it into sort of practical application there on the day. I've also got a webinar next week with Darren Shermer, all about L&D strategy for small teams wanting to have a big impact in 2026. Free to attend, so if you'd like some more stuff, do come along. And Heidi, tell us about your commute. What's going on in the useful stuff world at the moment?
Oh, yeah. So here in the US, we have Thanksgiving next week. So we are kind of in hibernation mode for the holidays right now. So please see Tom for any announcements because we're pretty much we're ready for the turkey and for all the food.
I'm always ready for the turkey and all the food. But be it November, December, January, February, through
It's a
kind
good
of
point.
October.
Yeah.
I'm
Me too.
not gonna lie.
Me too.
I have dropped a link there in the comments to the Useful Stuff community.
Thank
Go
you.
check it out because you've always got kind of cool events and webinars coming up. And I really like the community get-togethers as well when I have the time to drop into them.
Of course.
The time difference is often quite tricky. It's a popular meeting time. But thank you all as well for joining us today in the chat. We will, of course, next month have some form of Christmas special for you. The kind of dancers and the singer is being prepared as we speak. I don't know, we'll sort something out. I'll animate something maybe, I don't know.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Don't worry.
Great.
There is totally a plan. It's going to be amazing. But no, we would love to see you obviously next month as we would every month. The last session of the year, we'll find a way to do some cool stuff in the run up to it. But Heidi, thank you so much for your input today. Hopefully next month we come bearing slightly more positive news. See you next month, everyone. Bye.